Yeah, look, I don't think Brisbane has had much time to prepare. Some of the regional centres you've seen on the news over the past couple of weeks, you know, Rockhampton had 2 weeks, Emerald had several days. Brisbane people, this is involved. It evolved in the last 24 to 48 hours, and so to even when people heard that Brisbane would flood, I don't think for many people it would have sunk in that that means my house today, tomorrow, or tonight. So people haven't had much time to prepare, and what are they feeling? People are just acting on instinct right now to try and protect their property, to try and make sure their loved ones are safe, and to get to higher ground to safety around Brisbane. Obviously, we've panned around here to the centre of the CBD. Brisbane is a world centre. I mean, we're looking at skyscrapers here that water is right now inundating, and just think think at street level. There'd be basements under there, there'd be lower levels of those buildings below ground. There's a construction site filling with water, so the damage below ground would be enormous too, Chris.
Well, also, Peter, not to forget that there are many national companies with their headquarters in Brisbane. I could imagine, given the power cuts and the fact that people just simply can't get to their workplaces, that would have thrown some major national businesses into complete disarray.
Yeah, I mean, Brisbane is shut down. The power started going off last night. On the left of screen, guys, is our South Bank. Anyone who's been a visitor to Brisbane would have been through this entire arts precinct. That's Goma, our marvellous art gallery there, and the library and the State Performing Arts Centre where Wicked opened last night. I don't know that Wicked's going to be on anymore because that's not confirmed, but I'm just saying, look at that. That's South Bank Parklands. That is the jewel in the crown of Brisbane. It's the recreation, it's the playground hub. That is the Performing Arts Centre where Wicked is now on. It started on Tuesday night. Right there in front of you, you're now looking at the art gallery. This is the arts precinct. That's the library, top of screen. All this area is going underwater, and if it's going underwater now, fast forward 24 hours when we reach the ultimate peak, it's going to be a lot deeper in those areas, and this is critical infrastructure to Brisbane. I mean, it's you know, this is as modern as the city gets. Now, well, you can see
critical infrastructure to modern Brisbane, isn't it? Yeah. Now, we've seen, we saw earlier today an entire restaurant float down the river. There was also the Premier, Anna Bligh, earlier this afternoon said that they were very, very worried about the Mogul ferry because one of the ropes had broken on the ferry and they were worried that it was threatening to torpedo down the river. And you can imagine that at some speed, even things like this speedboat that we're looking at here could cause a lot of damage. Has there been any news on the Mogul ferry?
Look, we haven't checked on the Mogul ferry. We will do that later this afternoon. But throughout the entire river system, things are being washed away, and size is no issue. As I say, as you said, a restaurant can go washing away. There's barges, there's recreational boats, there's pontoons. They're all heading down the river. And don't forget, all this stuff is heading out into Moreton Bay. I mean, shipping containers, huge things. Can you imagine what Moreton Bay is going to look like at the end of this as vessels try and navigate their way back into Brisbane? All this stuff is now heading out into Moreton Bay. In terms of an environmental disaster, the amount of silt and muck and toxins and chemicals and everything in that river, that's all dumping out into Moreton Bay. It's a pristine environment, and it will take years to recover. The marine life out there will take years to recover from this. And don't forget, if we go out there tomorrow, all this debris is going to be floating out there, and it's constantly surging out the river.
We're looking at the water slowly rising up to the levels of the roadways on bridges. Have the authorities given you any idea of when they will actually stop traffic going across those bridges, when they're likely to do that?
Look, probably when the water gets up. I mean, that roadway there was closed in 1974. That's the Riverside Expressway, a critical bridge that links the south side and north side of Brisbane, and it was closed in 74. I've just been sent a text message. We were talking about Wicked before. It has been cancelled. I've just got a text saying all performances are cancelled Wednesday the 12th, the 13th and the 14th, and there'll be further updates for the weekend about next week. I mean, that sounds like a trivial thing, but, you know, some people need to know that. Right there, that's South Bank, the recreational heart, the beach that's in the centre of Brisbane, and normally To the left of that lagoon there's another 5-10 metres of concrete that people walk by. I think pretty soon that floodwater is going to get into that beach and lagoon area. That's the lifeguard tower that normally protects the people. You can see there's a police officer walking around there to make sure no one gets into there. And that is now the edge of the Brisbane River, and it will shortly lap over and inundate that lagoon there at South Bank.
Pete, how far below that wall that we're looking at there would the Brisbane River normally be?
Look, as you stroll along there, it could be anything from normally about 2 metres below. Obviously, it depends on where along that walkway you are. But it has just completely vanished there. And obviously, we're going to go another metre or so higher than that. And back in '74, this was actually warehouses. So, it wasn't as critical. Now it's been converted as Brisbane's transformed itself into this entertainment and recreational hub that it attracts people from around the world. But look, people are still just walking through the centre of South Bank. That's the piazza just below where one of the relief concerts were held on the weekend. There are still a lot of people walking through there. And really, if your house is not inundated and you're not trying to save possessions, just finding a spot to look at the Brisbane River is what you've seen in those pictures thousands of people are doing. That's the Wheel of Brisbane. Look at that. It is completely surrounded. People go there to see a view of Brisbane. Look at that view right now as the Wheel of Brisbane is surrounded by water. Here at South Bank in Brisbane. Amazing stuff.
And Pete, this is obviously some of the new infrastructure that you were talking about earlier that's been built since 1974, and the Premier's also been speaking about today, saying, and this is why these floods are going to be so damaging, because there has been so much new development across Brisbane.
Absolutely. This city has multiplied dramatically since 1974. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of new people have moved here. They've come here with no experience of what a flood can do, and they've bought homes with no idea, or that maybe they did get a flood report, and there was a little number on that bottom of the page, but it meant nothing. That building there is the construction site for the new ABC headquarters in Brisbane. That site is going underwater. Funnily enough, the ABC in 1974 were just up the river, and it was completely inundated. They lost everything. Currently today they're doing their emergency broadcasting from a radio station that it itself is under threat, but that's the new ABC headquarters, a multi-million-dollar project, and it is underwater too.
Pete, how much news has there been this afternoon about imminent danger to new suburbs? We were looking at pictures earlier today of some of the suburbs that were already underwater. What are you hearing?
The number of suburbs under threat all week has dramatically increased. We started with 30, then we got to 50. I think the latest talk was around 80 suburbs that will have water in them. That is a huge amount of suburbia. It's a huge amount of humanity. It's a huge number of people whose lives are being disrupted. Brisbane at the moment is on hold as this disaster seeps in through the city and slowly takes over.